What is up, everyone? It's Quinn here, and in today's video, I'm going to be going through my Week 7 top 20 tight end rankings. Already posted the quarterbacks today. Defenses will be out later, but let's just dive right into Tier 1. And I actually have 4 guys in this tier. I'm going to start it off with Trey McBride going up against the Packers. It seems like Marvin Harrison Jr. could miss Week 7 with his concussion, and we saw in Week 6 with Marv kind of knocked out of the lineup, Trey McBride had his best game of the season, was targeted 11 times, caught 8 of them for 72 yards and a touchdown. So I do like McBride here back up at the tight end 1 spot. I'm also not going to be ranking Brock Bowers. I don't think they push it this week. I don't think they should. So I'll talk about Michael Mayer later, but Brock Bowers will not be in these rankings. Then at tight end 2, I have Tyler Warren going up against the Chargers. He just continues to have a super impressive rookie season, averaging 14.1 PPR points per game. He scored touchdowns in each of the last 3. He's consistently involved. They're using him creatively. He's obviously going to be a lock in your lineup. And then great news here on the George Kittle front. It looks like it's likely that he is going to return from that hamstring injury. We know the 49ers need weapons. They've been relying on Kendrick Bourne to be their top target. So I think Kittle's going to come back, whether it's Mac Jones or Brock Purdy. I think he's going to look good. It seems like they've kind of been patient with him. They're not forcing him back. And I'd feel confident firing him up as like a high-end tight end 1, just like where you drafted him. And then the last guy in this tier is going to be Jake Ferguson. Now, I will say Ferguson has a strong case to be ranked number 1 if CeeDee Lamb remains out. It seems like Lamb has a chance to play. The reports have kind of been up and down, where early in the week, like a day or two ago, it was like, he potentially has a chance. And then I think Jerry Jones came out and said, it's probable. Now the report is it's possible. So who knows on that front? I still kept him in tier 1. He's been ultra productive, averaging 16.4 points per game. But with Lamb coming back, Ferguson's calling card has really been the volume. He's commanded an insane number of targets, better in that area than any other tight end. And so with Lamb coming back, I do think he takes a hit there, but he's still a clear top 3 weapon on a really strong passing attack on a team with a terrible defense. So even with Lamb back, he'll still be a great option, but maybe not quite that truly elite high-end tight end 1 play. Now moving into tier 2, this is kind of a really interesting tier. You got some young guys on good offenses and then just some older veterans that are still kicking around. I'm going to start off this tier with Dallas Goedert going up against the Vikings. Dallas Goedert is averaging 15.7 PPR points per game. I believe he has already tied his season-high touchdown number with 5. And early in the season, he was getting into the end zone, but it kind of felt like a house of cards because the volume wasn't there. His receiving totals were still very low. But then in the last 2 weeks, he has commanded 20 total targets, and then he's coming off a career performance in Week 6 where he catches 9 passes for 110 yards and a touchdown. So I think you just have to keep riding the hot hand here. I do not expect him to continue to put up 15 plus points per game. He'll probably settle in as 12, 13 points per game, somewhere in there. But it is important to point out that they are kind of using him creatively. They're going to these different looks with the tush push where they end up kind of cheesing him these touchdowns. So that's good to see. I do think though, if this offense kind of undergoes some changes and you're just looking at the production, they might look at this and be all right, Dallas Goedert might be a little bit too much of a focal point. We have A.J. Brown. We have Devonta Smith. Do we want Dallas Goedert to be our number 1 target? And the answer is probably going to be no. But in the short term, just continue to ride him here. Then I have Tucker Kraft and Sam Laporta back-to-back. And I just think these guys are very similar bets where neither guy has a super high weekly target floor, but they're playing on top offenses. They're both just solid NFL tight ends, and they're going to have a lot of touchdown upside week to week. So Tucker Kraft, Sam Laporta, both nice mid-tier tight end 1 plays. And then I've got a couple of veterans here, Travis Kelce, Darren Waller. Starting off with Kelce, looks like we're going to get Rashee Rice back this week from that suspension. And Kelce had started to gain some momentum. In his last 3 games, he went 5 for 48, 7 for 61 and a touchdown, and then 6 for 78. I do think with Rice coming back, the ceiling for Kelce definitely decreases. I think you could say it's a bump to his touchdown upside just because the overall ceiling of this offense will improve. But it's just there's not a ton of upside here. He'll now be potentially the number 3 target. Maybe you argue him ahead of Worthy, but it's at least a conversation. And then for Darren Waller, kind of interesting. He's really kind of saved his production with touchdowns. That's really, why his point per game number is so high. But in his 3 games this season, he has gone 3 for 27 with 2 touchdowns. Then the big game, 5 for 78 and a touchdown. And then this past week really was a non-factor, but I think catches a late touchdown. So 2 receptions for 12 yards and a touchdown. I will point out that he saw a season high route participation up at 78%. I think that's a really good sign moving forward. Brown's run defense is really tough, so Achane might have some issues on the ground. I think the Dolphins could throw the ball a lot. And outside of Jalen Waddle and Achane, it is Darren Waller up next there. So I do like him here at tight end 9. And then the final guy in this tier, we are rolling with my guy, Harold Fannin Jr. Now, this is going to be assuming that David Njoku misses this week. If Njoku does play, I would not have Harold Fannin Jr. In this tier. But we saw with David Njoku in and out of the game in week 6, ends up leaving. Harold Fannin had great usage, 76% route participation, 10 targets, 7 receptions for 81 yards. He's a talented young player. This team needs weapons. And if Harold Fannin Jr. just has this established role where he's running routes on 75+% of dropbacks, I am confident that he is a very solid fantasy play. Now, looking at tier 3, going to start it off with 2 of the older veterans here in Zach Ertz and Hunter Henry. For Zach Ertz, we've seen him play 4 games with Jaden Daniels this season. He had the 1 goose egg in week 5, but in the other 3 games, he's put up 11.6, 18.4, and 16.3 PPR points. I like the matchup here against the Cowboys. The Commanders have the 3rd highest implied point total. So Zach Ertz, a fine back-end tight end 1 play. And then for Hunter Henry, he is the tight end 10 in points per game, but the volume's been a little bit sketchy. He has not hit 5 targets in any of the last 3 games. I still like this Patriots passing attack. I'm obviously very in on Drake May, but they do kind of spread the ball around, and we haven't seen a great Hunter Henry performance as of late. And then the last guy in this tier, it's going to be Cade Otton, and this is really just due to the Bucs wide receiver room being cooked. You've got Mike Evans, Emeka Egbuka, Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan all banged up. It seems like Mike Evans could return this week. Egbuka, very unlikely to play. We'll see about Chris Godwin. But we did have that stretch last season where when both Evans and Godwin were out, Cade Otton was a fantasy monster. We look at his usage in the week 6 game. He ran a route on 24 out of the 25 dropbacks. That is great to see. Was targeted 6 times, caught 5 of them for 51 yards. So this Bucs offense is still going to produce. Baker is playing at a super high level. They need someone to catch passes. Cade Otton could certainly be that guy. Now moving into tier 4, a couple of rookies, a couple of more established options. Going to start it off with Mason Taylor. Looks like Garrett Wilson's going to miss some time. The Jets offense has, pretty much nothing going on at the wide receiver position. I think it's going to be Mason Taylor, Breece Hall, just getting peppered with targets. And Mason Taylor's kind of had an interesting start to the year. He was really a non-factor through 3 weeks, didn't hit 6 PPR points in any of those games. Then he kind of has a breakout in week 4 and week 5, 11.5, 17.7 PPR points. You start to get excited. And then he really comes crashing down to earth with 1.2 PPR points in week 6. His usage was still strong, though, 86% route participation. It's a lot easier of a matchup here against the Panthers. So I think Mason Taylor is certainly playable. Then the other rookie we have here, day 3, Rondé Gadsden going up against the Colts. Really strong usage in week 6, 82% route participation, was targeted 8 times, caught 7 of them for 68 yards. Now, it will be interesting to see what happens if Quentin Johnston is back. I don't think Quentin Johnston missing led to Gadsden getting a bump in usage. He was kind of just trending in that direction with his route participation rising week after week. But I do think it could have kind of, had something to do with the amount of volume he got, where you had Trey Harris running a lot of those routes. At this point in Trey Harris's career, he's just not as good as Quentin Johnston this season. But this is still a team that's going to throw the ball a lot. They have a very concentrated target share with Amarian Hampton out. I don't know if Herbert's going to be targeting the running backs quite as often. And so Gadsden's a fun young player as a high to mid-tier tight end 2 this week. I think that's fair. Then I've got TJ Hawkinson going up against the Eagles. He's looked a little bit better in his last 3 games, 5 for 49 and a touchdown, 4 for 39, 6 for 38. Still nothing crazy. We'll see about the quarterback situation. Is it Wentz? Is it McCarthy? but he is like the clear-cut number 3 target behind Jefferson and Jordan Addison. And then the last guy in this tier is going to be Kyle Pitts. This might be too low. I mean, he's averaging a very fine 10.3 points per game, just not a ton of weekly upside. We've seen Drake London just get force-fed in their last couple of games. Darnell Mooney potentially coming back soon. That's not great for Kyle Pitts either. And then in tier 5, one veteran, one younger option, Evan Ingram and Michael Mayer. For Evan Ingram, this season's definitely been a little bit underwhelming, but his last 2 games, he's been fine. 4 for 33 and a touchdown, and then 5 for 42 this past week. Also added 7 yards on the ground. It's just his usage, his raw participation is still very low. Like he's barely hitting 50%, which is typically an unplayable number. They use him somewhat creatively. He's still involved when he is on the field, but it's tough to have many higher when he's like barely running routes on half of the dropbacks. And then for Michael Mayer, like I talked about, assuming Brock Bowers is not going to play this week, we saw a really nice game out of Michael Mayer, 80% route participation in week 6, 7 targets, 5 receptions for 50 yards and a touchdown. We'll see if he can log another one of those games this week. And then in tier 6, I could have just, I guess, added this guy to tier 5, but I did feel like there was a little bit of a disconnect. I went with Theo Johnson. It's a bad matchup here against the Broncos. I don't think the Giants' passing attack is going to do all that much. But 82% route participation, someone who has been a touchdown threat, could potentially get into the end zone. It really does feel like there's a strong fall off. Like maybe you're banking on a Colston Loveland breakout, but like the usage is just so much worse. So don't love that. Theo Johnson, I do think there's a separation from 5 to 6. But that is going to wrap it up for my top 20. If you guys enjoyed the video, smash the like button, subscribe. Thank you all for stopping by, and I will see you in the next one.